My half-sister stole my fiancé and the wedding I paid for. She thought she won, but now she's alone, broke, and desperate to reclaim what she lost. My name's Emily, and I'm the younger of two sisters in what you might call a blended family. But blended implies some kind of harmony, and let me tell you there wasn't much of that growing up. My mom had been married before, to some guy who died when my half-sister was 5. Then she met my dad, they got hitched, and out I came a year later. Sounds like a neat little package, right? Wrong. See, my mom had this house she inherited from her first husband. Nice place, nothing too fancy. She also owned a sewing factory. After she and my dad tied the knot, she asked him to help run the business. They made a good team, I'll give them that. Dad handled the money stuff, Mom took care of making things and dealing with people. They doubled the company's profits in no time. I remember overhearing them talk about the future once when I was little. They were in the kitchen, thinking I was asleep. I hope the girls will take over someday, Mom said. Keep it in the family, you know? Dad agreed. That'd be great. Emily's got a good eye for design already, and Khloe's sharp with numbers. Little did they know, Khloe had other ideas. My dear half-sister never let me forget that everything, the house, the business, even the damn spoons we ate with, belonged to her and Mom. This is my house, she'd say, blocking the door to her room. You're just living in it 'cause your dad mooches off, Mom. I was too young to understand why she was so mean. I just wanted to play with her cool toys or borrow a pencil to draw. But every time I touched something, she'd snatch it away. That's mine, she'd screech. My real dad bought it before he died. You can't have it. Mom tried to stop her. Khloe, honey, that's not nice. Emily's your sister. Khloe would spit back, half-sister, and she gets everything. It's not fair. Dad never said much during these fights. He'd just pat my head and tell me to ignore her, but how could I? She made my life hell. One day, I found some colored pencils in the living room. I was so excited. Finally, I could draw the beautiful dresses I saw in my head. I started sketching, lost in my own little world. Then Khloe stormed in. Those are mine, she yelled, grabbing the pencils before I could stop her. She tore up my drawings. I ran to Mom, sobbing. She hugged me tight and marched over to Khloe's room. That's enough, I heard her shout. You will not treat your sister this way. But nothing changed. Khloe kept finding ways to remind me I didn't belong, and as we got older, it only got worse. As we grew older, my parents tried their best to keep the peace. They'd buy us the same clothes, give us equal gifts on holidays, but it was never enough for Khloe. Emily's sweater is softer, she complained, or her necklace has more jewels. You always give her the best stuff. It didn't matter that it wasn't true. In Khloe's mind, I was the favorite, the interloper stealing her rightful place. When I was about 10, my parents decided to sell the old house and buy a bigger one. I remember the day we moved in, how excited I was to have my own room. This is amazing, I squealed, twirling around the empty space. Khloe appeared in the doorway, her face dark. Don't get too comfortable. This house belongs to me and Mom. You're just a guest here. I felt my stomach drop. Even in this new place, nothing had changed. Later that night, I heard Mom and Dad talking in hushed tones. I don't know what to do anymore, Mom sighed. I've tried everything with Khloe. Maybe we should take her to see someone, Dad suggested, a therapist or counselor. Mom agreed, and soon Khloe was going to weekly sessions. But if anything, it only made her more resentful. Oh, so now I'm crazy, she spat one day after a particularly rough appointment. You just want to fix me so precious Emily can have a perfect life. I wanted to scream that my life was far from perfect with her in it, but I kept my mouth shut. It never did any good to argue with Khloe. As the years went by, Khloe's victim complex only grew. Everything was someone else's fault, usually mine. She'd complain endlessly about how unfair her life was, how no one understood her. You're all against me, she'd say. You owe me for everything I've been through. I started avoiding her as much as possible, staying in my room or at friends' houses, anything to escape the constant drama. When Khloe finally graduated high school and left for college in another city, It felt like the whole house breathed a collective sigh of relief. Maybe some time away will do her good, Mom said hopefully. For the first time in years, I felt like I could relax in my own home. No more walking on eggshells, no more surprise attacks of Khloe's jealousy. Those 4 years while Khloe was away at college were the happiest of my young life. I threw myself into my studies, especially art and design. I'd spend hours sketching clothes, dreaming up new styles. Mom noticed my passion and started bringing home scraps of fabric from the factory for me to play with. "You've got a real talent, Emily," she'd say, admiring my creations. For once, I felt seen for who I was, not just Khloe's annoying little sister. I started to imagine a future where I could use my skills, maybe even in the family business. After graduation, I'd been accepted to a college in another city to study design, which was a dream come true. The night before I left for college, Mom and Dad sat me down for a talk. "We're just so proud of you, Emily," Mom said, her eyes starting to mist over. "You know we're behind you, no matter what, right?" I nodded, feeling that all too familiar lump forming in my throat. Then Dad chimed in. "After you graduate, we'd love it if you considered coming back and working with us. Your designs could take the business in a whole new direction." I told them I'd think about it, and I meant it, but truthfully, I was itching to see what else was out there. The thought of returning to that small town, where Khloe's memory still lingered like a shadow on the wall, didn't exactly thrill me. College was everything I'd hoped it would be: freedom, creativity, and a clean slate. It was during my second year that I met him, Bill. He was a little older, working on his master's in business. We literally bumped into each other at the campus coffee shop. I spilled my latte all over his shirt. Total mess, but we laughed it off and ended up talking for hours. Bill was smart, charming, and more than anything, he actually listened when I talked about my design work. Not just nodded along, listened. We started dating not long after that. As graduation drew closer, the two of us began having those serious talks about the future. By then, we'd been together for over 2 years, and things were getting real. One night, over dinner, Bill looked at me and said, "I've got a job lined up here in the city. What would you think about staying together?" My heart just about leapt out of my chest. I'd already landed a junior designer role at a rising fashion brand, and the idea of building a life with him, far from all the old family drama, felt like a dream. Still, I knew I owed it to Mom and Dad to tell them the news in person. So we planned a trip back home. I was nervous, especially about introducing Bill to the family, Khloe in particular. I braced for tension, maybe even fireworks. But to my surprise, the visit went weirdly well. Mom and Dad were smitten with Bill, and even Khloe managed to be, if not exactly friendly, at least polite. For once, she didn't throw shade or try to cut me down. That alone felt like a miracle. Over dinner, I finally shared the news. "I've accepted a job in the city, and I think I'm going to stay," I said. Mom smiled, but I could see a flicker of disappointment behind her eyes. Dad cleared his throat. "Actually, we've been thinking, what if you opened a branch of the company out here? You could lead the design side, create your own line, run the show." I blinked, totally caught off guard. It was a generous offer, one that let me chase my dream without cutting ties to the family business. "Can I think about it?" I asked. They nodded, and the rest of the trip went smoothly. As we were packing up to head back, Khloe pulled me aside. "Look, I know things haven't exactly been smooth between us," she said, clearly uncomfortable. "But I'd like to try to fix that. Maybe come visit you sometime?" I didn't quite trust it, but I gave her a small smile. "Yeah, sure. That'd be nice." Once we got back to the city, life fell into a really good rhythm. I threw myself into my new job, working hard, soaking everything in. My designs were getting noticed, and I was finally doing what I loved. Bill and I started talking more seriously about marriage, apartment hunting, and building a life together. Everything felt like it was finally falling into place. Then, out of the blue, Khloe called. "Hey, little sis," she said, sounding almost chipper. "I'm in town. Mind if I crash at your place for a bit?" I nearly dropped my phone. Khloe? Voluntarily visiting me? Something felt off, but I remembered her trying to make peace during our last visit, so I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. When she showed up at my door, I barely recognized her. The bitter, cold version of Khloe I'd known most of my life was nowhere in sight. Instead, she greeted me with hugs and a bright smile. That first night over dinner, she casually dropped a bomb. "You know," she said, twirling pasta on her fork, "I've been thinking. You should really come back home. We could work together at the business. It'd be great." I nearly spit out my wine. "Wait, what?" "But I just started my job here. And Bill's here, too." Khloe waved her hand like none of that mattered. "Bring him along. There's tons of opportunity back home." I shook my head, trying to be polite. "Thanks, but no. Actually, Mom and Dad suggested I open a branch here. I'm still considering it." For a split second, I saw something flicker across her face, tight eyes, a twitch in her mouth, but it vanished so quickly I wasn't sure I'd seen it at all. "Well," she said, recovering fast, "if you're not moving back, maybe I could stay here a little longer? We've got a lot of catching up to do." Against my better judgment, I agreed, and, to my surprise, it wasn't the disaster I feared. Khloe helped out around the apartment, even took over chores I usually hated. We started staying up late, reminiscing, laughing about stuff from our childhood. For the first time, it felt like I was getting the sister I'd always wanted. One evening, after a couple glasses of wine, she brought it up again. "What if we opened that branch together?" she said. "You handle the creative side, I'll run the business stuff. We'd make a great team." The idea wasn't crazy. In fact, it made a lot of sense. We'd been getting along surprisingly well, and her background in business could actually help bring the whole thing to life. "I'll think about it," I told her. I wasn't ready to commit, not just yet. As the weeks rolled on, Bill started spending more time at the apartment. I was nervous about how he and Khloe would get along, given everything, but to my relief, they hit it off. Really well, in fact. I'd come home to find them laughing together, deep in conversation about some startup idea or business plan. It warmed me to see two of the most important people in my life getting along. Eventually, Bill and I set a date for our wedding, 6 months out. I designed the invitations myself, agonized over every detail, from the flowers to the food. Khloe was there for all of it, giving input, helping with the planning, offering encouragement. It felt like everything was falling into place. In the middle of all the wedding prep and business talks, Bill and I made a decision. We'd go ahead and open that new branch of my family's company after we tied the knot. Khloe and I spent so many evenings planning it out. The two of us huddled over wine and big dreams, each conversation more exciting than the last. "We're gonna be unstoppable," she said one night, raising her glass to mine with a grin. "A real power team." With just 2 months to go until the wedding, I was balancing a million things at once. My job, the upcoming business launch, and every little detail of the big day. Life was crazy, but it was a good kind of crazy. I felt fulfilled and full of hope. Then I got the call that flipped everything upside down. "Emily, it's Dad." His voice sounded tight, like he was forcing the words out. "It's your mother. She's not doing well. She's been feeling off for a while now, but you know how she is, always pretending everything's fine." He paused, and that silence said more than any words could. "I'm barely keeping it together over here at the house, the factory. It's all too much." I didn't even think twice. "I'm coming home," I told him. "Right now." When I broke the news to Khloe, she let out a sigh. "I wish I could come too, but I've got meetings I can't move around." I was a little taken aback by how quickly she dismissed it, but I didn't question her. "It's okay," I told her. "I'll keep you posted." Back home, things were worse than I'd feared. Mom looked like a ghost of herself, pale, frail, nothing like the strong, vibrant woman I'd grown up with. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it. She had a tumor, and it needed immediate surgery. I didn't have time to fall apart. I threw myself into everything, cooking, cleaning, helping Dad at the factory when I could. Most importantly, I stayed by Mom's side. through every appointment, every hard night. I arranged to work remotely, doing what design work I could in between hospital visits and late-night laundry loads. The days blurred into each other, a loop of stress, exhaustion, and quiet fear. But finally, some good news. The surgery went well. Mom was on the mend. Through it all, I tried to stay connected with Bill. At first, we'd video call every day. Seeing his face brought me comfort when everything else felt like it was slipping through my fingers. "How's she doing?" he'd ask, brows knit with concern. "Better today," I'd say, forcing a smile. "How are things back there? Khloe behaving?" He'd chuckle and say everything was fine. But over time, those calls got shorter, then skipped altogether. Messages sat unread. My texts floated in silence. I tried to convince myself it was just the stress, that once I got back, everything would return to normal. But deep down, my gut was twisting in a way I couldn't ignore. After nearly a month of radio silence, I couldn't take it anymore. I booked the first flight home. My mind ran wild. Maybe Bill was sick. Maybe something had happened. Maybe he'd lost his phone. Maybe I didn't tell anyone I was coming back. Part of me wanted to surprise him, catch him off guard in a sweet, romantic way. Instead, I got a different kind of surprise. When I walked into our apartment, it was quiet, too quiet. Then I heard it. A laugh. A soft, muffled giggle, coming from the bedroom. I wish I could say I paused, took a breath, knocked politely. But I didn't. I flung the door open like a woman possessed. And there they were. Bill and Khloe. In our bed. Naked. Tangled up in each other like they belonged there. For a second, everything stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even process what I was seeing. Then reality punched me in the chest. "What the hell?" I screamed, my voice cracking wide open. They jumped back like they'd been caught stealing cookies, but neither of them looked shocked. If anything, they looked relieved. "Emily," Khloe said, clutching a bedsheet like it was some kind of shield. "We didn't expect you back so soon." Didn't expect. I stared at her, trying to make sense of the words coming out of her mouth. Didn't expect me? That's all you've got to say. Bill had the decency to look guilty. Khloe, though? She just stood up calmly, still holding that damn sheet. "Look, sis, sometimes these things happen. Bill and I, we're in love." It felt like my lungs had collapsed. "In love? You've known each other for what, a few months?" Bill reached for her hand. "Sometimes you just know," he said softly, like he was reciting a line from a Hallmark movie. "We didn't mean for this to happen," he added, but what?" I cut in. "You tripped and accidentally landed naked in my bed?" Khloe gave me this sickly sweet smile. "Emily, you should be happy for us. Actually, we were kinda hoping you'd understand. Maybe even let us use your wedding plans." I just blinked at her, completely numb. "What?" "Well," she said, like she was explaining math to a toddler, "everything's already paid for. It'd be a shame to waste it. We could just celebrate our engagement instead." I don't remember walking out of the apartment. I don't remember the plane ride. I only remember arriving at my parents' house and crumbling into my childhood bed like a broken version of the girl I used to be. Mom and Dad found me there, curled up and silent. They didn't ask questions, just sat with me while I cried myself out. When I finally told them everything, Dad's face turned red with fury. Mom didn't yell. She just looked heartbroken. "I'm calling her," Dad said, grabbing his phone. "This ends now." He put it on speaker. I could hear Khloe's voice crackling through, loud and defensive. "Of course you're taking her side," she snapped. "You always have." "Well, guess what? This time, I'm the one who got picked." "How's that feel, Emily?" Dad's voice was ice cold. "If you go through with this, Khloe, you're no longer part of this family. Do you hear me?" There was a pause. Then she answered, her voice full of venom. "Fine. I don't need any of you anyway. I've got Bill now." Click. Just like that, she was gone. Mom pulled me close, her fragile arms shaking. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I held on tight, tears burning again. I felt like a child all over again, Except this time, I wasn't. I was a grown woman who had just been gutted by the two people who should have protected my heart, not crushed it. The days that followed were a mess. Some moments I could barely move, just curled up in bed, hollowed out. Other times, I was full of rage, researching lawyers, calculating receipts, ready to take back every cent I'd spent on that wedding. And then, during one of those late-night revenge spirals, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, my voice tired. "Hello? Emily, it's Margaret. Bill's mother." The second I heard her voice, I nearly hung up. But something about the way she sounded, shaky, heartbroken, made me pause. "I don't even know what to say," she went on. "We're so sorry, sweetheart." I sat there in stunned silence as she poured out everything, how ashamed they were of Bill, how blindsided they'd been by what he did. She told me they'd always thought of me as a daughter, that they couldn't believe Khloe, my own sister, could do something so cruel. "We want to make this right," Margaret said finally. "We know we can't undo what happened, but we'd like to reimburse you for everything. The wedding. All of it." True to her word, a few days later, a check showed up in the mail. It covered every single expense. And just like that, a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying was lifted off my shoulders. As the date of what would have been my wedding crept closer, I came to a decision. I couldn't go back to the city, not yet. Too many ghosts. Too many scars. One night over dinner, I looked at Mom and Dad and asked, would it be okay if I stayed here a little while? Maybe help out at the company? They exchanged a glance, and then Dad smiled. "We were hoping you'd say that. We could really use you, especially your eye for design." Just like that, I had something to focus on. Something to fight for. I threw myself into the work harder than I ever had before. Every sketch, every new collection was my way of flipping the bird to Khloe and Bill. "Look what you threw away," I thought. "Look what you'll never have." The day of their wedding came and went without a word from any of us. We didn't go, obviously. I spent that entire day locked in my office, pouring every ounce of my energy into designing a new youth clothing line I'd been dreaming up. And months later, that line hit. Hard. It brought in an entirely new customer base, fresh, young, and excited about the brand. Within a year, I'd helped grow the company's revenue by over $1 million. As for Khloe and Bill, they were ghosts. Dead to me. I didn't wonder where they were or what they were doing. I didn't care if they were happy. They'd made their bed, and I hoped they were uncomfortable in it. 3 years flew by, wrapped in fabric swatches, design boards, and the kind of success I used to only dream about. Our family company had grown into a major name in the fashion world. And me? I'd finally carved out my own space as an artist, an entrepreneur, and a woman who'd survived betrayal and turned it into something powerful. One warm summer evening, I was having dinner with Mom and Dad at their place. We were laughing over some old memory, wine glasses clinking, when the doorbell rang. Dad looked confused. "Are we expecting someone?" I shook my head, a weird feeling crawling up my spine. Mom got up to answer it. And then, I heard the last voice I ever wanted to hear again. Well, look at this cozy little family dinner. Khloe." She pushed right past Mom like she still had a right to walk through that door. "Glad to see you're all just thriving without me," she sneered. I stood up fast, the chair scraping behind me. "Khloe, what the hell are you doing here?" She looked different. Tired. Angry. Worn down by something she couldn't quite hide. "Oh, just thought I'd stop by," she said, sarcasm dripping from every word. "See how the other half lives. Especially now that I'm newly single." Dad's face tightened. "What happened to Bill?" Khloe let out this bitter laugh, dark and hollow. "Turns out, once a cheater, always a cheater. He ran off with his secretary." She rolled her eyes. "Poetic, huh?" I felt something stir inside me, not sympathy, but maybe a flicker of dark satisfaction. Karma had finally cashed its check. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though we both knew I wasn't. "But why are you here?" Her expression changed, hardening like stone. "I want what's mine," she snapped. My share of the business. I'm family too. Or did you all forget? Dad stood up slowly, his voice steady and cold. No, Khloe. You forgot. You walked away from this family the moment you stabbed your sister in the back. You don't get to come back and claim a piece of something you tried to destroy. You can't do this, she screamed, her voice cracking. You can't just cut me out. Mom stepped forward, her voice quiet but unshakable. We already have, she said. Khloe, you're disinherited. Please leave. For a second, I thought she might snap. Her hands were clenched, her whole body trembling. But instead, she just glared at us with eyes full of venom. This isn't over, she hissed. And then she was gone. A few days later, chaos erupted again. I was working in my office when I heard shouting coming from the lobby. I rushed down, and there she was. Khloe, in the middle of our design studio, screaming like a woman possessed. You're all being lied to, she shrieked at our confused employees. My parents are thieves. They stole everything from me. I didn't hesitate. I picked up the phone, calm as I could manage. We need officers at Fashion Forward Designs right away. There's an unstable individual causing a disturbance. Security tried to get her out, but she fought them every step of the way. And that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few days, she spiraled, trying to break into my parents' house, smashing windows, and finally, in a terrifying act of desperation, trying to set fire to the front door. It had gone way too far. With heavy hearts, we filed for a restraining order. The court approved it. Khloe was banned from coming near me, my parents, or any of our properties ever again. Later that week, I sat alone in my office, watching the city's skyline shimmer in the late afternoon light. My heart felt heavy and light at the same time, a swirl of sadness, anger, relief. I'd lost my sister. But the truth was, I'd lost her a long time ago. What I'd finally done was let go. In her place, I'd built something better. Something strong, beautiful, and mine. I was a name now, respected in the fashion world, a designer with vision and bite. The girl who'd been left at the altar had become a woman people looked up to. As for love, that could wait. Bill had left a scar, sure, but it had healed. I just wasn't ready to open that door again, not yet. For now, I was content building something lasting. Something that no one could take from me again.